Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Frank's Unsolicited Advice. And first off, happy Memorial Day to all those people out there today, barbecuing, enjoying the pool, the beach, whatever you're doing. Please be safe, enjoy, drink a lot of water, stay hydrated, put your sunblock on, and enjoy the time. Enjoy a moment of a day, hopefully off for many. And those that are working, it sucks. But for you that are home with your family, your friends, enjoy it, be safe, and take it in. Take it in. Life's too short. Um, Things can happen in a blink of an eye, and the way the world is going with all the chaos, especially here in America, you want to take advantage and be take advantage of the moments, live life. Don't be in fear and kept in a bubble or in your house. I mean, between COVID and violence and everything that's out there, we still need to be able to live our lives and not let the enemy keep us down too long, but still be safe, and enjoy it. I'm stuck in the house. Like I said in my last episode, tested positive for COVID and I'm in the house. So obviously I'm up early. The house is quiet. I'm sitting here thinking about a conversation my wife and I had yesterday and two friends of mine and Nikki and Bree. And we were going to record yesterday on relationship. However, we just didn't. So I was sitting here today and I wanted to talk about perspective. And the reason I want to talk about perspective is because with a lot of things going on between at work, from my situation at work and in my life or what I see people, I think that the perspective of how we look at it, the lens that we look at things with changes our views on everything. And what I might see as a negative, you might see as a positive. What I might see as a bad situation, you might see as a good situation. So real quick, what I would like to do is read the definition of perspective from Webster's dictionary. It says a mental view or prospect, a visible scene, the interrelation in which a subject or its parts are mentally viewed, the capacity to view things in their true relations and relative importance, the appearance to the eye of objects in respect to their relative distance and position, and the technique or process of representing on a plane or curved surface the spatial relation of objects as they might appear to the eye. So, why did I choose this topic? Why did I choose this word? Why did I choose this to discuss? Well, it's simple. First off, I feel that when you have conversations, I feel that when you're interacting with people, I feel when you're dealing with anything, how you go into viewing it affects the outcome and your thought process and how you see it. So if, for example, if I am working for someone that I don't trust, then I'm gonna think that everything that person does, I gotta question it. I can't trust it, or it's coming from a bad place, or are they trying to help me or set me up? Are they trying to put me in a situation that's not conducive to me and just hoping I fail, or are they really trying to help me out? And I think that's a pretty easy way to look at things, right? If I believe that you have my best interest at heart, then I'm trusting everything you say. I'm gonna do it. But if I feel like there's a reason not to trust you, and I feel like there's a reason to question everything, then I'm gonna look at everything you do suspiciously. Like I'm like, I don't know. And I think that when you go into like an argument, a conversation, even business meetings, all that stuff, if there's an inclination of your perspective and how you look at things in that person, and you feel like there's something wrong, or your perspective on it is that it's not a good thing, then you're gonna react in a certain way. You're gonna question and not trust it. And it can lead to not healing in certain things. It can lead to not coming to an agreement or overcoming certain things, right? So for example, let's say you and your spouse or your girlfriend or your friend are having an argument about something that happened or occurred, but they already had their mind made up on what it was going to be. and you're seeing it from a different vantage point. And this event happens. This thing takes place where now both of you are feeling some way. But because one person was seeing it as, yo, this might be innocent, I don't see it from, I know what my intent was. So my perspective on it is very different compared to what a person's thinking your intent was. Their perspective is going to be very different. So until that communication piece happens, you're not going to know what set the other person off, right? Because in your mind, you're like, well, when I said what I said, or I did what I did, it wasn't in a place of malice. I didn't have the intent to offend you. And, I was going into it very differently. But because there was already thoughts in place, there was already feelings, there was already a mistrust, there was an unease from the other part. They didn't go into it with blind eyes. They went into it with eyes already with a prejudice towards it, because they felt they were feeling some way. Whether it's, I can't trust you, whether it's, you did this before and look what happened. Now you're doing it again. You're tainted. Your view, your perspective isn't the same. So when you go into it, you're already going to have your mind made up of what the outcome is or why the intent was there, when it probably wasn't that. But, that would take conversation to figure out. That would take some healing within yourself to figure out, to be able to put things to the side and just say, hey, let me not allow my past to affect my present and my future. Let me not allow what's happened before to taint my view or change my perspective on something. Let me come into this with a, clean slate perspective, where I don't know what intent is, and I'm not judging you, or I'm not holding something against you. I'm just going to go with it. And I believe that a lot of times when we are dealing with people and we're looking at a perspective of things, we are dealing with it based on past experiences, based on what we saw growing up, based on our life, or what we were told. And that's everything. If you look at our society as a whole, between racism to now, which still exists, right? The fact that people still believe that one race is inferior to another because of color of skin or nationality is crazy. That's bananas to me. You would think, I could live with that maybe back then, because, there was no TV, there was no real, a lot of people couldn't read, education wasn't the same. But in 2022, for us to still have that mentality is crazy to me. But that's the perspective they have, right? That's how they look at it, because that's what was put in their mind. So that's a past experience or learned behavior put in somebody's mind to make their perspective be one way. And that is, if you're not this, then you're not the same level as me. You're not worthy. And just imagine how that alone has impacted our world, our lives, our societies, our everything, how we raise our children, right? If take law enforcement, for example, there's been conversations, if people have had them, and you can have them as adults, is why is it that when dealing with minority Black and brown people, the cops are more aggressive than they are when they're dealing with white people? And you've had even some minority cops say, yeah, I treat my own different than I do others. Is it because the perspective of us as humans, Black and brown, is that we're naturally louder? We're more passionate. They confuse aggression with passionate, with passion, I should say. We're willing to speak up because of years of not being able to speak up. But we don't get the same treatment. It's perspective, right? The cops already go into a situation alerted because of what they've been told, or what they've experienced, of what they've put in their mind, that when they come to a certain situation, if it's two minorities or a minority and a white person, they tend to treat one worse than the other. And we already know what that is. It's been documented, right? It's on the news. Its articles are written, books. For people that want to still be blind to it, you can live in your world, but men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And the numbers are there. Think about all the shootings and hate crimes that happen. That's perspective. That's somebody's view on a culture, on people, and says, oh, I'm gonna take them out because I just don't feel like they're worthy of it. And that's all a product of somebody's perspective, somebody's view on somebody, something that was taught, learned. We're not born with that in our minds. So just take that. That's a small topic or a small piece to this big thing I'm talking about, which is having the right mindset, the right view going into a situation can change everything. And when I say situation, it's very vague and it's general in a sense, because you can pinpoint conversations, business dealings, wars, sports, anything. They all have everybody goes into something, or everybody looks at something, I should say, with their own view, their own perspective on things. That perspective that vary from everybody, and depending what you've lived in life and what you went through in life is what leads to you to see it that way. And sometimes until you change that perspective, you're never going to get past a situation. You're never going to heal. You're never going to mend relationships. You're never going to, things are just going to be left unsaid because of whatever you feel. And that is what my wife and I spoke about, what we spoke about. So when me and Nikki and Bree were talking about dating, and I said, sometimes we miss out on opportunities because we won't date past what we like. Everybody has a type. Some people don't date outside their race. And I said, sometimes you have to step out, change your views, change your perspective on dating, and try something different. You might find happiness. It's like I said, I like GMC or GM cars. So Chevy, GMC. So let's say I keep buying these cars, but they all break down within 5 years, or they just all break down. They're just not good enough. But I keep buying it because that's what I'm used to. What if I just stepped out and bought another car? Like Americans that don't want to buy foreign cars. American cars all the way. But Honda's resale value is a lot better than a Chevy's. Toyota's pretty good car. What if you did buy something different and find that you like it and that it operates good? And it's the same thing. It's just a different company. It's made somewhere else, which now they're probably made in America anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but it just has a different name. And we talked about that. And they were like, yeah, that makes sense. And we had a long conversation about that because perspective does matter. How we view things matters. It impacts our decision-making, how we buy, what we buy, when we buy it, how we react to things, who we talk to, who we do business with, what we watch on TV. I had a friend of mine say, one of my coworkers goes, I don't watch shows with accents because they can't keep my focus, the language barrier. Some people don't like watching foreign shows, they're like, I don't get it. I don't understand. One dude said they couldn't understand a British accent. I'm like, it's English. Like, what you mean you can't understand it? Like, speaking English is just pay attention. But again, that's just little things that people do or we do as humans that impact a lot. And I talked about racism, police brutality, all that stuff. That's a bigger issue that comes from a long line, a long history of implementation of thoughts and views into people to make them feel a certain way. I believe that that's not going to change until we start changing our views and start teaching it to other people to show them that, listen, people are who they are, not because of their skin or their color or their race or creed or religion. That's who they are. You could be the same crazy a-hole, whether you're white, Black, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, Muslim, Christian, Catholic, there's radicals everywhere. And it just made me think about that. So I wanted to get on here today real quick to talk about that and give you some examples. And what I think to change is what we need to do. I feel like when you go into a conversation or a meeting or a disagreement and you're going to try to resolve, you have to take your views out of it. So not, okay, let me rewind back. Leave your views of what hurt you or what you saw there, but be open to the concept that what you thought is not really what it was. What you thought isn't really what it was. Because remember, sometimes we're already going into something and we're already thinking something. So once we think it, whatever we see after that is going to be that. I'll give you an example. If I thought my wife was cheating on me and that's how I feel, then every time she's on her phone and she smiles, I'm thinking it's somebody else, right? Let's say she's a nurse. So after her 12-hour shift, if she stays behind to put in her notes so she doesn't have to do it the next day, oh, where you was at, you didn't leave work. You go off for work at 7 p.m. and it's 9 o'clock at night, you're not home yet. Where you at? If she puts on a nice outfit, or she does her hair to go to work because she wants to look presentable. But in my mind, I think she's out here doing her dirt. Then I'm gonna think, oh, why are you doing your hair? You're going to work with patience. Why are you doing it? It's got to be something deeper, Instead of me looking at it as like, hey, my wife wants to look beautiful when she goes to work. She wants to look presentable. She wants to look clean. She wants to look decent. So why not? Or instead of thinking, hey, man, she's a nurse. Maybe she had a patient code on her and she's still there dealing with that. Or maybe she's putting her notes in, or maybe there's more to it, But we automatically think the worst when we're already going into it with that thought process. And that's the whole premise of this episode. It's a perspective of things, how they impact the view. How we view things impact our way of perceiving it and understanding it and looking at it. And unless sometimes we're willing to listen, I can say, hey, listen, man, I thought you was out here doing some dirt because of X, Y, and Z. You did this and it triggered that. But the same way I can say that, I need to be able to listen to what the person's saying and go into it with an open mind and not automatically judge or feel that you're wrong. And no matter what you say, I'm going to think of it the way it is because that's what I believe it to be. That's my perspective on it. So I'm sticking to it. Then if that's the case, you're never going to get, there's no resolve. Everything you view in that manner is always going to be skewed and wrong because the person's intent might not be that. The person's actions, but what they were really doing might not be that. So you have to sometimes express what you feel, but don't be open to looking at things from a different lens, a different perspective, a different vantage point to see the other side of things. Because sometimes until we step out of ourselves and look at the other person, what the other person's saying, we might not understand the whole story. We might not understand the whole situation. Sometimes you have to be able to put your feelings aside, your own experiences aside, your past aside, and view things from a new perspective, a new lens that's not clouded, tainted, or hazed with past experiences, and just see what it is. And you might realize that you were completely off base, completely not in the right spot. You were wrong, or it can prove you was right the whole time. And then your perspective was on point. But until you were able to step out of it and look at it and be willing to open to another way of looking at it or another way of thinking or something, you're not going to get there. You're not. So first off, you got to look at things. Don't negate your experiences and don't negate how you feel, but always look at things from multiple angles and different views to make sure you understand and make sure that what you're feeling is actually true or you were wrong. We shouldn't allow our past experience to dictate everything. We have to be able to move on from things that hurt us or we've seen to be better, right? If we continue to hold on to things in the past, we're never going to get better. We're never going to move on. We're never going to grow. We're stagnant. So you have to constantly deal with whatever's happened to you. You know what? Deal with the person that hurt you, that broke your trust, that made you feel a certain way, like you were less than or not valuable enough to be honored, to just be committed to one, and then forgive and move on. And don't allow that to impact the next person. or even the same person if you chose to be with that person and move on. And once you start looking at things from different perspectives and are willing to accept that there is another reason other than what you think, excuse me, I feel that it can bring a lot more resolve and understanding to relationships, whether it's a marriage, a business, a friendship, sports, whatever it is. Everybody has their own perspective on things. So I think it would create more of a resolve and better conversation. People get along more. I think we'll be happier. Uh, it's just thought process. It's something that forever and a day is going to constantly hurt us or stop us from being great. But at the end of the day, perspective does matter. Language matter, words matter as well. So if you change your perspective sometimes and you change the view of how you see things and you just look at things from different lenses and different angles and different vantage points, then you might understand the bigger picture and realize that what you were thinking was completely off, or it might just confirm what you had. So this is my episode on perspective, my unsolicited advice. I just woke up this morning, wanted to talk about it. And I hope that it makes sense to you guys out there listening. I hope that some of you guys can take advantage of this and share, like, subscribe, please. But thank you for listening to Frank's Unsolicited Advice. This was an episode on perspective.